Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is sponsored by Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with the intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Products include Westlaw, Practical Law, and Firm Central legal practice management software for small law firms. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
And welcome. Access to Democracy returns. We have one return guest, one new guest, and it's really a pleasure to welcome back Doron Jensen and hello, Paul Richards. You have an interesting story. Most of you, I would think, know of Jensen's, which is a mainstay restaurant here in Eagan, has been for 20 years, coming up on August 29th. It'll be a 20th anniversary. Congratulations. And the interesting thing is that, Paul, you started with the restaurant when the restaurant started, right?
Yeah.
You were one step above dishwasher or something like that?
Yep.
And today you are?
Today I am the kitchen manager.
What does the kitchen manager do?
Everything. Scheduling, hiring, quality control, everything.
Very good. I think we have a picture of Paul when he started. If we can pull that up. And there we are. That young youth is now today an older youth. So Doron, we've discussed this before, but people have a tendency not to remember. You have a family that's been in the restaurant business for 60 years, right? 60 years plus?
Yeah, going back to 1947. Guess it's not almost 70. Coming up on 70.
Yeah. And give us a little bit of history on there.
Well, my grandfather got in the restaurant business in 1947. He was in the gas station service business. It was actually his brother Pete who had a restaurant, and they went on it together. And just like I did with my brother when we first started. But they opened Jensen's Cafe in Fremont, Nebraska at the corner of 5th and Broad. He actually rented the space right next to a service station. So he did both for a while. But then after he and his brother it wasn't really working out, and his brother Pete had another restaurant anyway. He took it over full time and then left the service station business and stayed the way with the Jensen's Cafe then for the rest of the time. And he had that from 47 until 79. And I started working for him in the summer of 75. That's when I started in the restaurant business unofficially.
And so he had his gas station, and then he had his restaurant next door. I guess we could make a pun and say giving you gas at 2 locations, but we won't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the service station, he was a big service guy. He believed in really taking care of the guest. And, back in the day, a service station, now they're convenience stores, but that was really, truly a service station.
And it was, yeah.
You went to get gas, and they came and they cleaned your
checked the
windshield.
oil and the whole business.
That's right. Took your money. You never got out of the car. And then as well, they fixed cars. So, but it was really, it was all about service. So he brought that into the restaurant business, and I think it served him well.
So you came on in '75, and you said, "Hey, maybe I want to do this for a living."
Yeah. We'd been eating there as a youth when I was younger. We'd go there almost every Friday night. We didn't live far away, and it was just pretty cool. The whole idea of owning it, you got to eat for free, and at the end we'd go and grab a candy bar up front, and so I kind of I had illusions of, wow, that really seems neat, but I was too young to think about what my career was going to be. Until then, I went to work for him then. In '75, I was 17, and then that kind of got me the bug a little bit.
Now, Paul, when you started, was it your intention to be in the restaurant business really as a life career, or was it just a job?
No, not when I first started. It was a trade. My mother and father were already in the business, and it was kind of an in. I wanted to start working, and they had a dishwashing job, so I started there. And I was always had access to the kitchen, and was always interested in wanting to learn. And so I bounced around a couple places really early on, and then again my father got me into Jensen's very early on, and just been there ever since.
There was a woman who, at that time, was working at Jensen's by the name of Vanessa. Is that correct?
No.
No? Got bad information here.
She worked at the...
She is my wife. She worked at the cafe and opened the cafe over in Burnsville. Yes. She had previously was working for Leanne Chin and was general manager there. And, I says, hey, Doron's opening another restaurant. You should go talk to him, see if you can move out of that corporate and get into the nice, family-run business.
So we can't say that it's the business that brought you together because you were together before that.
No, we're high school sweethearts. We met in high school, yep.
And interesting, we talked about the cafe. Now, the cafe is a second Jensen's in Burnsville. Really started as a breakfast and lunch place, but it has really turned into a full-time restaurant and very popular.
Yes, yeah. It was probably about 8 years ago that we added dinner. So we went about 3 years with just breakfast and lunch. But it's really worked out to have all 3 meals. It's the slowest meal when it comes to being able to get in. It can be very difficult to get in during the day. So it's a time to come to Jensen's. So there's always that opportunity. I love going there for dinner. Just to get meatloaf and mashed potatoes, but almost half of the people who eat at any meal, outside of breakfast, have breakfast. So breakfast is still well eaten into the evening.
And of course, in Egan, it's lunch and dinner.
Yes, and we started with just dinner for many years. We just started the lunch when the mall opened, and we remodeled, and so now we're just finished 2 years of doing lunch, and it's working out very nicely.
Right next to the outlet mall.
Right next to the
outlet.
outlet.
Which has become a very popular location. Yeah.
Very popular, and so it works very nice to have the lunch, and it's a steady lunch throughout the day. It's nice.
The interesting thing is 20 years ago, August 29th, Sharon and I got married. And we didn't live in Minnesota at the time. And we said, what are we going to do 20 years from now to celebrate our anniversary? And we said, well, maybe we'll celebrate it at Jensen's in Eagan. Not quite, but but we have become really regulars there. And I can say that in the time we're here 19 years, we have never had a bad meal. We have never had a bad experience, which is incredible in the restaurant business. I mean, that just doesn't happen. So what's the secret?
Well, maybe people forgetting that they had a good meal or a bad meal. It's consistency. It's having people like Paul, who've been with us for many years. Paul is not the only one in the back. He works with a half a dozen almost fellas and gals that have been with us well over 10 years, 15 years.
That's something I was going to bring up, because your servers are all long time. Bartenders, I mean, just all the personnel.
Mm-hmm. And it really helps, because sometimes, things do happen. Maybe there's some food in the window that doesn't look quite right. And when you have enough senior people like that, veteran employees, that maybe it's caught before it gets to your plate, or before it gets to your table. If it isn't from the kitchen, it may be from one of our long-term expediters, or even the server themselves, catching these things, because they know by seeing for years and years how this product is supposed to look, and can recognize that, and then maybe can make it right before it gets to a guest. So there's just nothing like having long-term people when we try to do things, or maybe we change something, or we make a recipe change or a menu change. It's so much easier when you're working with the people. We all know how things work, how it's going to shift things. Versus,
and everybody knows pretty much what to expect of everybody else then also.
Yeah, working, it's a team. On a Friday or Saturday night, we've got almost 40 people working, to serve your meals. Yes. And I mean, that's a lot of people having to come together and working and having an efficient operation. I mean, Paul can talk about that on the busiest days.
Yeah, it's definitely comes down to the team you have surrounding you. I wouldn't never be able to do it by myself, neither would Doron. But yes, you have to have that strong, senior guys that know what's expected, that don't question, what the direction of the restaurant is. Doron goes through me, and then I go through the kitchen, and that's just what it is. It's everybody knows, what. You
rarely come out of the kitchen, as a matter of fact. We have people out front who, in effect, managers or maitre d's.
Yes.
But you pretty much run the show in there and stay in there to continue running it.
Yeah.
Now, what happens, a chef calls in sick or something like that? You can step right into that situation.
Yes, yeah. And that's another thing, too, is, we have guys that are very proud of what they do there, especially the long-tenured guys. So, being absent from work is not acceptable, to them. They know that they're needed, and they know that they're expected to be there. So those types of situations are far and few between, which in the restaurant industry itself is very rare. Usually there's a high turnover. People are coming and going all the time. Things can get lost, expectations, standards get lost when you have that kind of rate of movement. And I've been lucky that we don't have to deal with that very much.
No, you started to say
it's when you're constantly training people, and that's what happens in a restaurant where you have the turnover. When Paul, if most of his job, and that's what it would be in a lot of restaurants, is finding somebody starting today, they don't know anything of what they're doing. I mean, they may have worked before, but they got to learn our way. Well, he's got to really spend time now and just work with that person. Teach him all the details, follow up, get the training done right. And if that's in another restaurant, that may be all he does. A kitchen manager, sometimes that is literally all they'll do is train new people. Paul never, I mean, I don't want to say never, but
No,
almost never. It's 1% of what he does. So that now he has all this time just to look
Right.
and look at quality, look at the products that we're bringing in, look at the production,
The details.
look at the details, look at the cleaning and the cleanliness. It's just a focus. And if you're just always training, and I've been there in my history at different times, I only have those bad times in my dreams now. I just had a bad restaurant dream here about a week ago. It was actually a bad construction restaurant dream. We couldn't get this restaurant built, and everything was going wrong. But thank goodness, that's the only time.
It's like a nightmare, not a
right.
dream.
I mean, so my mind, I know back there, it's sifting and sorting and trying to keep away from having all those things. But that's a big one.
Yeah.
And that's why Paul still has all his hair.
Food purchases go through you, right?
Absolutely, yep.
And of course, you must check what's being
Yes.
delivered also.
Yep, and that's a constant process. It's not just when it comes in the door, it's also when it's, going onto the grill or going into the pan.
I think that's not as much a problem here as it would be in New York. I know restaurant owners there who got shorted on their deliveries if they didn't really stay on top of it.
Yeah.
And, that's very costly to the bottom line.
Well, and it's good to have vendors that are cognizant of that too. That they're very good about fixing the problem as quickly as possible. That goes to not just the purveyors but the reps that we have too. Very reliable. Know what we expect, so that they know how to handle that type of situation.
Yeah,
And we have somebody who's, say, a pretty good customer who has certain eccentricities or wants something specific. Like, I know a guy who likes 45th Parallel vodka. And actually, there's a bottle that sits there for me. That makes a difference, too.
Yes. Well, that comes down to probably one of the most important reasons for no staff turnover, very little, long-term employees, let's say, is that our employees get to know our customers. And so when Alan and Sharon Miller come in and eat, they are recognized because our staff has been there for all these years that you've been coming in. Not everyone, but a fair share.
Many.
A fair share. And you have your favorites. You may pick who you'd like to, but even maybe when that server's gone, another one can step in because they've stepped in before. But what we get to know the guests, where they want to sit, what they like, and that is that's turned over to maybe some of the newer staff that that staff may share in that. But we recognize the guest, we know the guest's name, and that can only be done if the staff has been there longer, as long or longer than the customer themselves.
And it's important, and it makes the customer feel important.
Yes.
So.
Well, but that can't happen when the server if most of our staff just started last week. Nobody's going to know Alan and Sharon Miller when everybody started last week. And we have some new staff, and they probably haven't gotten to know you yet. But what happens is when you have all the turnover is that then when that's the majority of the staff, well, then you never have that.
And we've never had that, so.
Well, and I think it also comes down to the core of why we have a successful restaurant. It's the service part. Really, ultimately, that's what it comes down to, is the service. Even from a kitchen standpoint, say we have somebody that comes in and they don't like, you name it. That's fine.
Or maybe no seasonings or
gluten-free right now is a huge trend that's going around. And as long as you ask, if we have it in the house, we'll gladly take care of it.
Gluten-free, by the way, this too will pass, like all things that are around for 10 years. Obviously, I mean, one of my favorites was always the prime rib there. And the prime rib is outstanding. But you've also made your reputation on walleye and how you prepare the walleye, popovers, and the popovers that come out. The salad dressing on the regular salad is something that's very special. And how it's prepared is very special. And it makes a big difference. It really does. And
Yes, it does. And
I'm getting hungry as we sit
yeah,
here.
yeah. We came up with the idea. We have more than one salad to choose from now, but for many years, we really had our house salad.
Yeah.
With the sweet pepper vinaigrette, and when you simplify things, and it was a great recipe from day one, and it's easy to make. It's easy to make consistently. There's a lot to be said in that.
And it's a favorite 20 years later.
And it's a favorite 20 years later. We actually looked at maybe going to individual salads and tried some different things, but boy, the people wanted that house salad. Don't mess with that. We've tinkered here and there at times, but you learn quickly. And you hear it from when we have as many regular guests as we do. They'll tell us, and we listen. And we'll keep it the way they want it.
Yeah, it is very important. Mm-hmm. And the consistency, as we said, is very important. The personnel out front, the wait staff, is very important. And they go out of their way to accommodate. So, I mean, we were talking before we went on air that I just read an article about the average restaurant lasts 5 years. The average new independent startup lasts a year, which is pretty shocking to me when you think of the investment. But we can look around Eagan and the area, and we can see that that's true when we see how many restaurants have come and gone during that period of time. So for you to say, well, we're going to celebrate on August 29th our 20th year, that says something both about the staff, the personnel, and the restaurant. And obviously the food.
Yes, we're really proud. I know when we were at 10 years, I thought, that was an accomplishment in itself. Beats the
Absolutely.
1 year. I still didn't think it was really that long-term number, and I thought it was the 20. That when we got to 20, then we really are kind of on another level of being around. And of course, now that it's 20, I think, I think maybe 30 would really be. But we've really invested in the restaurant. I think the place looks like it's brand new. We in the last 2 years, we really went and have remodeled and fixed up.
Well, we had one act of nature, which
nature that sometimes insurance can help. We had new floors and a new roof put on for that, but it's just really part of the whole focus.
Now you have the patio dining. You also have 2 banquet rooms. So, obviously, you have grown with the times.
We've grown with it, and we've reinvested. You got to reinvest in the plant itself. You can ask Paul. We get new equipment. It wears out, and you've got to get new equipment. You have to keep up, because if you get behind, it's so expensive to replace equipment in the restaurant. And you get behind, and now you might have too big of a bill, and you could never do it.
A perfect example is popovers. Now, there are several other restaurants that give you popovers, but nobody but Jensen's gives them where they're hot, fresh, and have just been baked, literally just been baked. Now, I know that several years ago, you changed to new equipment specifically so you would be able to do that.
Yep, we changed our procedure, and the way that we hold them, and just just having them fresh, ready to go. They're always on rotation all night long, and from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, there's popovers in the oven.
Now, you've been active, Doron, in the Restaurant Association in the area. And how has the change in minimum salary affected you, if at all?
Well, the cost of labor is up 25% maybe in the last couple of years. I've taken it on as a needed. The restaurant business is we've been kind of maybe an employer of last resort, or first. When people maybe get their first job or stay in a job, but we have to have livable salaries, and that really goes more in the kitchen side than the front of house side. So many of our staff work for tips, and it's a very good job. Always has been. The minimum wage has gone up, and I'm okay with that. I think the more important part of that is getting that legislation that going from year to year and not knowing what the changes will be, I think is harder than if and now the minimum wage is set as the years go by based on cost of living adjustments, and you can forecast and know. I've been really focusing this last year or two in getting our kitchen wages up and figuring out ways of how we change just the model of our business and profitability to be able to have a much higher cost labor. So it's a challenge, but it has to be done.
And it's a challenge that you've met, and we've actually almost run out of time here. It goes so quickly. But let's say again, Jensen's Restaurant, right off Route 13, right next to the new outlet mall, a 20-year fixture in Eagan, and certainly we look forward to the next 20 years. We've been talking with Doron Jensen and Paul Richards, and they make the wheels turn. Although Doron doesn't show up so much anymore.
Paul makes the wheels turn.
I've been there when Doron came in and they said, "Excuse me, sir, can we seat you?" Well, maybe not quite. But thank you, gentlemen, and good luck for the next 20 years.
Sure appreciate it.
Got off even a few seconds early here.